Hi, my name is Emily Murai, and I'm in the Environmental Studies Department at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I'm the author of the chapter Navigating Non-Tenure Career Tracks in Solom et al.'s book, Thriving in an Academic Career. I'm so glad to be able to share my chapter with you today. In this chapter, I use my over 15 years of experience as a non-tenure track faculty member to advise potential job seekers about non-tenure track career options. I focus particularly on non-tenure track teaching jobs because that is what I am most familiar with. Some of the key points that I want to make in this presentation include the fact that working conditions in academia are variable and evolving. Change is happening, albeit very slowly, and some of the changes that institutions are making benefit those of us in non-tenure track positions. Jobs off the tenure track are not universally good or bad. It depends really on the specific position and what one's wants and needs and expectations are. So not universally good or bad. Third, we, and by that I mean those of us in the discipline, really need to prepare graduate students for a variety of different career options, both within and outside of academia. And lastly, we need to be transparent about the working conditions in our own institutions and work to support those who are the most contingent or voiceless. What does it mean to be non-tenure track? One of the biggest challenges in talking about non-tenure track roles is discussing it as a singular unified category. There is in fact a great deal of variability in titles, roles, levels of responsibility across different types of institutions, geographic regions, and disciplines and fields. Some non-tenure track faculty voluntarily teach a class or two as a side gig, while others couple together part-time positions into a full-time job at multiple institutions, what is commonly referred to as the freeway flyer. Some disciplines like composition writing, music, or foreign languages depend on a large instructional body to teach their service-heavy, skills-based courses, and the faculty in those fields are often at the forefront of working to improve labor conditions. In other disciplines like geography, we don't talk much about non-tenure track faculty. It's almost invisible. What we do know about the casualization of faculty and staff positions in higher education is that it has increased over the past several decades. At the same time, the production of PhD degree holders has not slowed down, creating a surplus of qualified candidates for a shrinking number of secure, well-paying jobs. The American Association of University Professors now notes that over 2/3 or 68% of higher education faculty hold a contingent non-tenure track appointment, and almost half of them, 47%, are part-time. And the largest growth of non-tenure track faculty over the past 20 years has actually been at public and doctoral granting institutions. So community colleges and associate degree granting institutions actually employ the largest number of non-tenure track faculty in real numbers, but the largest growth over the past 20 years has been at public and doctoral granting institutions. So dominant narratives of those employed in non-tenure track positions often emphasize sort of contingency, precarity, and labor exploitation. And while that experience is undeniable, and it's also undeniable that there's a great deal of room to improve working conditions across institution types and disciplines, it is also true that others, like myself, have actually found a great deal of satisfaction in these roles. The system is not perfect, far from it, but it can work. So non-tenure track roles may be worth exploring as a potential legitimate career path. So, what do you want to look for in a non-tenure track job? The first piece of advice I offer to anyone on the job market, tenure track, non-tenure track, inside academia, outside of academia, the first piece of advice is to be clear about what your own value system and personal priorities are when looking for a job. In other words, what matters most to you? In grad school, most of us have been trained to prioritize what other people want, what my advisor wants, what the department or the institution or what the discipline thinks of as original and creative. I'm going to prioritize that. And when it comes to the job market, we may just fall into that same trap of doing what we've been told to do. But you will maximize your own long-term happiness and success in a job if you actually think about and are clear about what you want in a job. If you prioritize your own wants and needs first, you'll actually increase the likelihood of finding a good long-term fit. For me personally, it was really important that I had a job that would allow me to focus on teaching because that is what I love to do most. And I wanted to have some sort of work-life balance. So when I finished my PhD degree, I had this sort of inkling that I wanted to be in a domestic partnership, I wanted to raise children, I wanted to play a major role in their lives, and I wanted a job that would give me that flexibility to do that. At the same time, the publish or perish mentality of most tenure track jobs was a complete turnoff, as was the demand to move wherever you got a job. So I ended up moving where I wanted to live first, in my case, close to my family on the West Coast, and I ended up getting a teaching gig while I was still in the throes of writing my dissertation. When I finished my degree, I was able to turn that into a full-time job, partially because I was teaching lower division required writing courses that had high staffing needs. I don't honestly know what I would have been able to do if I was looking for a full-time geography teaching job. I don't know if I would have been able to find it. But that said, if you find a non-tenure track job that you think might be a good fit, look at it carefully and do as much research as you can beforehand to know what the job entails. Be clear about what the job offers and what it does not offer. What are the responsibilities? How much is the pay? Is it a temporary or long-term position? What is the cost of living in the area where you will live? Talk to other non-tenure track faculty in the department or institution about what their experiences are. The point that I want to make is that if the non-tenure track position seems like it could align well with your lifestyle, your value systems, your long-term goals, it can be a good fit. Don't let the fact that it is a non-tenure track job deter you from thinking that the job's not good enough for me or that it will definitively be exploitive. Be sure to do your research and weigh the position against other factors in your life that may be important to you. If you're in a non-tenure track job, so one of the most important things to note about non-tenure track jobs are that there's many built-in sort of contradictions into these roles. Many say that about academia more generally, but it feels very acute for non-tenure track faculty. We have the same degrees as our research colleagues, but we're often paid less. We have far fewer perks, and even when we teach the same classes, or we do similar or even heavier or take on more challenging workloads, we may be doing essential work to the functioning of the department and the institution, but we're left out of governance, we're ignored. So we become masters at sort of navigating contradiction while still trying to thrive in our roles. A couple of things I might suggest to help non-tenure track faculty navigate this very sticky terrain. One, and perhaps most importantly, document all the work that you do. Do it even if it's just for yourself, but you need to make clear what value you are bringing to your job and to the institution. And sometimes we get messaging that the work that we do is really not that important from institutions, from individuals, and documenting it will allow you to give you have the confidence to push back against those messaging. In addition, it'll allow you to self-advocate, right? You want more job, more teaching gigs, you want higher pay, you want a long-term contract, whatever it may be. You can use all of the things that you're doing as a tool for being able to self-advocate. And you can show it to other people. Look, this is the work that I'm doing. This is how I'm supporting you in your job by doing all of these things. Secondly, I think it's important to actually avoid overinvesting in work and making sure that you are practicing self-care. It's very easy to burn out when you are teaching large classes, when you have a heavy teaching load with high enrollment. And I think that it is actually very important that we build into our course curriculum and structure our classes in a way that allows us to set boundaries with our work and with our students. So not all exams need to be open-ended, sort of long-form paragraphs that have to be graded by a human. Do auto-grading, do multiple choice. Do what you need to do curricularly in order to make sure that you practice self-care and that you are not overly investing in your work beyond what you are being compensated for. Third, I think it's important to build allies and networks that can support you in your roles. Use the sponsorship effect to your best advantage. Find people who will be able to advocate for you behind closed doors. Additionally, maintain professional networks outside of academia. Always have those networks so that you can have an exit strategy if needed. And this is something that is more generally true for academia in general, especially since it's such a hard place to work right now. Make sure you have those exit strategies going. And lastly, work to make the system more just. The more we can make the system more just, the more we help support everybody in our workplaces. If you're in a non-tenure track job, what do you do? How do you leave? If the position you're in is no longer offering you the kinds of satisfaction or opportunities you are seeking, it might be time to think about transitioning jobs or careers. And I don't mean to make that sound simple or blasé. It's a huge task with enormous implications, but I think that the major blockages that academics face are actually believing that our skills have value in other career paths or industries, that they actually can transfer to something else. We also may be buying into this idea of the sunk cost fallacy, this idea that if you switch careers, you'll have wasted all the time, the personal resources, the finances that you spent pursuing this profession, these degrees. Don't let either of those beliefs pin you to an unhealthy or unsatisfying job. You only lose when you stay in a job that is no longer the right fit for you. So it may take some time to grieve the loss of the identity, to grieve the loss or the shift in the goals. It may take you a little bit of time to overcome sort of these emotional blocks. Give yourself that time and space to work through that. And that will allow the opportunities to come your way, and you will be in a position to fully receive them. Once you've given up, or where you've worked through that mental and emotional shift, when you've been able to make it, the steps that you need to take to make that change, to convert a CV into a resume, to do informational interviewing, to do networking, all of that becomes clear, but it only becomes an actionable path when you are available to receive that. Overall, I do believe it is possible to thrive in a non-tenure track job. Any role, really, if you really anticipate and plan around some of the role's shortcomings and set appropriate expectations. And I just want to hit home 2 points here. One, always be sure to put your own values, needs, and priorities first. Those go first, and your career is organized around that, not the other way around. 2, do not give any more than you get, and do not pursue jobs that are less than what you are worth. Such advice seems easy to dispense and harder to follow, but we all deserve a living wage, professional respect, and reasonable work-life balance. And if the jobs you are looking at are not offering those things, then they are simply not worth it. Trust your inner voice when it tells you to stay or when it tells you to move on. It is possible to thrive in any role, but you need to make that job work for you and not against you. Thank you for listening, and I hope the rest of the panel goes well.